everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some apricot jam shortbread wedges or squares. So I'm going to make this in a 9-inch 23cm tart tin, but you could do it in an 8x8 square cake tin, a 20cm square cake tin if you wanted to. It's best if it has a removable bottom, but if it doesn't, then you would line the tin with parchment paper so you can lift the shortbread out once it's fully baked. It's actually a very simple recipe. It's going to have a layer of shortbread pressed down into the tin and baked a little bit, then some apricot jam over the top, and if the jam has a few lumps in of apricot, that's fine. If they're too large, you can just cut them a little bit and make them smaller. And then the remaining shortbread dough will be sprinkled over the top so that that cooks down onto the jam. So it's quite simple and it doesn't take too long. So I've started off by preheating my oven to 160 degrees Celsius. That's 140 Celsius with a fan, 325 or 320 Fahrenheit, I think. 320 to 25 between those two. And I've lightly greased my tart tin, and I'm using a fluted tart tin with a removable bottom. Now really I don't need to grease it because the amount of butter in the recipe will make sure that it doesn't stick, but I've done that just to be on the safe side. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and I have 230 grams, which is 1 2/3 cups minus 2 tablespoons of plain flour. That's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 80 grams, 3/4 cup of ground almonds. I have 227 grams, 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter. I have 200 grams, 1 cup of caster sugar. I have 3 grams, half a teaspoon of salt, 5 milliliters, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 240 grams, 12 tablespoons of apricot jam, which I don't need for the time being. So we're going to start off by creaming the butter and the sugar together until it's fluffy, and part way through that I'm also going to add in the vanilla extract. And I'm going to use my hand whisk, but you could do this by hand, whisk it or cream it however you want by hand with a wooden spoon or something. And as I said, as I mix this, I'm going to add the vanilla extract as well. So that didn't take very long at all. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my salt into the flour and my ground almonds into the flour, and I'm just going to stir those and mix them together a little bit. And then I'm going to put those into the butter mixture, and I'm simply going to mix it on a low speed until it begins to clump together. So that's clumping together quite nicely, and what I need to do is I need to actually divide that into 2 equal portions, and one of them is I'm going to just loosely wrap in cling film. I'm not going to pack it together, and I'm going to put it in the fridge for it to chill while we work with the remainder. So I'm going to take about 370 grams of the mixture and put it into the tart tin. And that's half. So what I will then do is just cover the remainder in the bowl with plastic wrap, and I'll put that in the fridge. And then with the mixture that's in the tart tin, I'm going to press it down until it completely covers the surface of the tin. So that's good like that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dock that with a fork all over. Like that, and I'm going to put that into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but about 10 minutes, and then I'll take it out of the oven and allow it to cool down for about 10 minutes, at which time I'll be ready to put my apricot jam on and then cover with the remaining shortbread dough. With the shortbread dough cooked, I actually cooked mine for 12 minutes. I didn't think it had coloured enough, so I cooked it for 12 minutes. And it did rise a little bit, but it has sunk down as it cools down. So what I'm going to do, it's very, very fragile. So I'm going to spoon my jam over, but I'm going to leave a gap all the way around the edge. Which will allow the remaining dough to form a seal around the edge. And as I say, if your jam has some large pieces in it, you can break them up, but you can also leave them if you want, because they may poke through the top a little bit, if that's what you prefer to see. And I'm simply going to spread that like that, and then it's ready to have the remaining dough sprinkled over it. And I've taken that out of the bowl and I'm going to break it up, and I'm going to start by going around the edge and leave it in little clumps, obviously, because we want this to be a sort of not a sort of rustic type shortbread. Now you could, if you wanted to, freeze this dough in a block and then grate it with a cheese grater, and that would work quite well as well, I think. And with that sprinkled over the top like that, I'm going to put that back into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for 25 to 35 minutes until the dough on the top has actually melted down. The butter will melt as it heats and should form a top, and there may be some jam just poking through, and that will be perfectly fine. And once it has baked through and coloured nicely and looking as though it's coming away from the edges, then I take it out of the oven and I'll allow it to cool on a wire rack before I come back and show you the results. I baked the apricot jam shortbread for 30 minutes, and it coloured nicely on top, and it the clumps began to spread out, so it's covered the top nicely. I took it out of the oven and I put it onto a wire rack in the tin and allowed it to cool. Then I took it out of the tin. I've left it on the base for the time being, but I have cut a couple of wedges out and I've had a taste, but I'll show you. This is what it looks like. And it baked very, very nicely, and the bottom, as you can see or here, is nicely baked through too, as well as the top. So I'll have a taste of this little piece. That is very, very good. It's lovely and buttery, and the fruity taste of the apricot jam. And although it's sort of crunchy on the outside, it's just that little bit chewy where some of the jam has seeped into the bottom layer. Perfect, absolutely perfect. So I think this is ideal served in wedges if you do it in this shape, or if you do it in a square cake tin, you can serve it in bars, and you can serve it in slightly, I think you can get at least 12 wedges out of this, maybe even 16 to serve with a cup of tea. But if you want a larger portion as a dessert to serve with some cream or some ice cream, you can do that as well. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the recipe, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do subscribe, don't forget to click on the bell icon as well, because that will then send you notifications when I put new recipes and new videos online. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.